Hey, welcome back to the JMFG podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Glenn. Just want to send a shout out to all my followers, all my subscribers, all my friends, family. Hey guys, the podcast is going well. It wouldn't be successful without you guys. So it's not my podcast, it's our podcast. It's us helping through sharing. And last week I had my buddy Mike Parks on. I don't know if he's still my buddy because I skinned him up in golf. So he hadn't called me or texted me. So I'm assuming I ruined my relationship. So hey Mike, I'm sorry. But today's guest, so Mike, hey, thank you for coming on, brother, sharing your story. I hope everybody got some out of that. So this week, we actually got another Mike on this week, which is Mike Elliott. So I had Mike Parker and I got Mike Elliott. Everybody wants to be like Mike. So Mike's my first veteran, my first military guy that's on the JMFG podcast. So it means a lot to me having him here just because he is a former veteran. So with no further ado, I'll let Mike introduce himself.
Hey, Johnny, first of all, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for allowing me to be on your podcast and be the first military member on your podcast. It's pretty cool. And thank you for what you're doing, giving back to the communities. That means so much. A little bit about myself. I'm actually born and raised about an hour from your house here in Littleton, North Carolina.
Okay.
I joined the military back in 1987. Just growing up as a country boy in the tobacco farms, being around the military, being around Fort Bragg all my life, I said, well, I want to get away from it, Yeah. So I joined the military. And I went to Fort Campbell, then I came back to Fort Bragg, then went to Fort Benning, and came back to Fort Bragg. I never got away from Fort Bragg, so I ended up spending 19 years at Fort Bragg. When starting off in Fort Campbell, I've always had this like a adrenaline thing about me. I wanted to do stuff like jump out of airplanes, and at Fort Campbell, initially I wasn't on jump status, but I eventually went over to the Air Assault School, became an Air Assault instructor, which also gave me a jump slot. And I just fell into love with the passion of falling out of an airplane. I spent about 5 years at Fort Campbell. Went Desert Shield, Desert Storm at Fort Campbell with the 502nd. I was a scout at the time.
Okay.
Came back and got my orders to go to Fort Bragg. When I went to Fort Bragg in the second of the 504th. Parachute Infantry Regiment as a young squad leader, hard as vinegar and loving the 80 deuce, running up and down Ardennes and doing great things. And I spent about 5 years there, and then I got selected to be a black hat down at Fort Benning, Georgia, which was pretty cool for me because I have such a honor of jumping. So now I get an opportunity to go out and teach other folks how to fall out of a perfectly good airplane.
So I gotta ask Mike real quick. How many jumps do you have today?
Today I have about 17,000 jumps, probably 100 or so static lines, and about 28 Halo free fall jumps as well.
Okay.
So I think I like jumping out of airplanes. I don't know yet. I'm gonna continue to do it.
I see you like it a lot, brother. Definitely. So, and I'm gonna back up a little bit. So, Mike, when you first started jumping out of planes, what was that thrill like for you?
Oh man, to me, Johnny, as a young kid, like I said, I rode dirt bikes. I've always chased adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
All my uncles had the hot rods, and so I kind of fell into that same slope of loving to go fast.
Yep.
So the first time I jumped out of an airplane, I was overwhelmed. I was in awe, like I have met the ultimate adrenaline rush, and I just couldn't. Even the first jump, you're a former jumper. I was scared shitless. I'm not gonna lie to you. But when I landed and everything was still intact, I'm like, oh, that's it. I have met the mother load of adrenaline, and I haven't stopped since that time.
That's pretty cool. So now you do a lot of tandems now, right?
That is correct.
So how many tandems do you have today?
Close to 6,000 tandem skydives. I love tandems because, again, the passion that I have for falling out of airplanes, and now I can take that passion and give it back to other people. And through tandems, I have had the opportunity to touch a lot of people. I belong with a program called Support Our Troops America. Within that program, one of the branches is Leap of Faith.
Okay.
So we meet a lot of Gold Star family members, soldiers that are missing legs and arms, and we take them on this leap of faith. And we do something like every time I'm jumping someone, I do something real special in the air. Like once the parachute opens up, I go through this process and I tell them, hey, if there's one thing that you could do better, or one thing you could say to your loved one that you lost, what would that be? And when they start to talk, I pull down on the brakes of the parachute so it slows it down to almost it's not moving in the air. It's dead silence. And once at that point, I tell them, now I want you to let it go. And I release those brakes, and it transformed them to it's just absolutely amazing. And I can remember, I think you had Luis Contrell as one of your guests.
Yep.
And I remember the first time I met Luis. What do you say to someone that has lost so much?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
I understand. No, you don't understand.
You don't understand. Yeah.
But
they've heard sorry so much that, you know, you don't want to be that next cliche. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't know what to do. And I remember meeting her that morning and thinking like, man, what an amazing person that she is continuing to do something great for her family. Right. And going up in the airplane, you know, she was quiet and getting hooked up and getting in that door and getting out in free fall and the parachute opening up. And I can remember she had a picture of her family.
Right.
And when we landed and she got her unhooked and she was jumping around in the air.
That's awesome.
And laughing. That moment said, this is why I love what I do, because I got a chance to share a little bit of what she's dealing with, and I got the opportunity to give her a smile.
Right.
You know, and I've seen that smile so many times in so many people from a passion that I love and I can give back to others.
That's
There's
awesome.
nothing like that.
That's good stuff. So who would you say was your most exciting person that you tandem with?
I would say, I mean, I've had a lot of exciting tandems, but I did have the opportunity to jump with former President Bush on 3 separate occasions.
That's awesome. How old was he?
So the first time I jumped with them, I was with the U.S. Army Golden Knights. I spent 11 years as an ambassador for the Army with the Golden Knight Parachute Team, U.S. Army Parachute Team, traveling around the world and promoting the military and bridging the America's Army to America.
Right.
So the first time that I got that recognition that I was going to be jumping with the former president, I can remember the sergeant major and the commander calling me into my office and into their office. And at that time, I was the tandem team leader on the U.S. Army Golden Knights.
Nice.
And they said, hey, Mike, look, we got a call from Gene Becker, the chief of staff for former President Bush. He wants to do a jump for the rededication of his library in College Station, Texas. And we want you to be the one to take him on a tandem skydive. And, you know, he had done some jumps. He had jumped on his own, but his age was, his skills was not as sharp as we wanted. So we wanted to do something different. And a tandem jump, he could still get that thrill without using his, you know.
Yeah, without hurting himself too.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I remember walking out of that office and I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, that'd be great. And I walked out of that office and it hit me like, you know, in a couple months, I'm going to have a former president strapped to me.
Yeah.
You know, and you see presidents all the time on television, but getting up close and personal to shake his hand is great. But
now you got his life in your hands.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was very nerve wracking. And man, I went like, I changed my whole diet. For 6 weeks, I worked and trained and jumped as many times as I could because I wanted to be successful in that mission, because I was not only representing the U.S. Army Golden Knights, but I was representing the U.S. Army, and I was representing my family members and other young Black American guys and girls that could see that, hey, you can do anything you want to do. You know, there's no barriers if you got the right mindset. And man, I jumping out of that plane that day, it went off without a hitch. And we landed, and he was happy, and you know, every news station in the world was there, and he got up and spoke, and he talked about his tandem buddy, and man, I was just an honor to be able to do that. And he was, so that was he was 80 years old at that time. So, you know, still, he was in great shape, but he was 80 years old.
80 years old. Yeah.
You know, I was just extremely happy, and then 5 years later, still on the parachute team, he called back. His people called back to the U.S. Army Golden Knights and said he wanted to jump on his 85th birthday, and he wanted me to be his tandem instructor.
That's awesome.
So we went up to Kennebunkport, Maine, and that's where we did his second jump. And the world's smallest drop zone I've ever landed at, surrounded by the ocean. It was up at, he has a family home up in Walker's Point. And, you know, all his kids come up there, and that's their summer vacation home. And initially he wanted to jump into his yard at Walker's Point, which is only like 10 feet by 10 feet. I'm like, sir, we're good, but we're not that good. So
I can land myself there, but I'm not doing it with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to St. Anne's Church, which is still a really, really small drop zone. And I mean, anytime you jump in with a former president, you got the Secret Service, everyone's doing background checks, they watch you pack the parachute, every news station in the world. it's a big weight to carry on your shoulder. You want to make sure it goes off without a hitch. And the second jump was just beautiful.
That's awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
And then the third one, was that the last one that you did?
The third one on his 90th birthday. And I had retired from the military when I got that call. And to me, it was such an honor because the former president went with my parachute team and me, and not the U.S. Army Golden Knights. Not saying that in a bad way. The U.S. Army Golden Knights. Yeah, absolutely. They're the best of the best.
Twice,
a lot of guys could do that. The team could do it all the time. I see, meaning the Golden Knights, but I was selected to do that. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he's turning 90. He's been in the hospital for 7 months. He's dealing with MS. He has no control, not a lot of control from his neck down. He's wheelchair bound. He's talking about a task, man. That was a task.
I can imagine.
I went up there about 6 weeks before we did the jump, just to see him, sit down and talk to him, make sure his motor skills were good. And I saw him. He was in his gym working out. He had his wheelchair, and he wanted to show that, hey, I'm still in shape.
Right.
And no one in his family was willing to approve him jumping on his 90th birthday. Right. His son didn't want him to do it. Mrs. Bush didn't want him to do it. But he wanted it. And finally, the family agreed that we're going to let him jump on his 90th birthday.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah, I went up there and talked to him. And at the time, I was leasing a King Air 90, small airplane, small door. Mm-hmm. And I knew for a fact that I couldn't jump him out of that King Air 90. So I had tucked the CEO of Bell Helicopter and on a tandem jump down in Texas. So I called him up, said, hey, sir, this is Mike Elliott. We did a tandem jump in the Alliance Air Show. He was also a former Ranger guy.
Oh, nice.
The CEO of Bell Helicopter.
Nice.
And I said, look, we got a jump coming up with former President Bush. He has some difficulties with his movement, his breathing control. I said, I need a helicopter to make this mission happen. He said, whatever you need, Mike. So he sent a brand new Bell 429 from Texas all the way to Maine for me to configure it however we wanted to configure it to make sure we took the president on a jump. So you're talking about some great connections.
That's special, man. That's special too. That's good stuff, man. Matter of fact, it's funny you say that, and I don't want to ever volunteer nobody to do nothing, but I just thought about it. My last episode, or episode before last, I had this kid that was born with spina bifida, and he loves the military, just loves it. And he's in a wheelchair. So offline from this, I just thought about it. I want to talk to you about that because I would love to see if we can set up something to get him a tandem, man. Because he wouldn't know it. I know his mom watch every episode, so I hope don't say nothing to him. You know what I mean? Let's see if we can try to figure something out, work something out, man. And I would love for you to. Oh my God, he wouldn't know how to. He wouldn't know what to do.
We have designed a harness for any type of situation. If long as the doctor gives up the thumbs up, we can figure out a way to take them on a tandem skydive. I mean, I've jumped guys that's paralyzed from their neck down, quadruple amputees. I don't care what you're dealing with. If you want to do it, we'll make a way for you to do it. So
for anybody out there, if you come through me or, Mike, we're going to get into it now. He's an all-veteran group CEO. He designed it. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But if you're out there and you do have, physical limitations, you just heard it from the horse's mouth. With more jumps than I can count. He's telling you, they've done it. They can do it. If guys do want to do that, or if you got a family member that want to do that, get in touch with Mike. Get in touch with me. We'll get you guys in the right direction and get it done because we're trying to help through share. And having said that, I don't think nobody should be limited to do something they want to do in their life because of a mental or physical or any type of disability. If we can figure out a way to do it, then let's do it.
I agree, Johnny, 100%.
And so having said that, let's talk about the all veterans group. So can you tell everybody what it is first so people know?
So the all veteran group is former Golden Knights or Black Daggers or guys from SF backgrounds that were Halo certified that still love to jump out of airplanes. And we package up in a way that we can jump and give back to the community. Our mission is to honor, remember, and serve. And we do that through these great skill sets that we gained in the military. So we're doing, this year we have 120 shows. I think we're all over the globe. We're the official team of the Carolina Panthers. We jump every home game.
Nice.
We were just down in Texas where we jumped into the World Cricket game. I never knew what cricket was. I still don't know after watching the game. Here in a few weeks, we'll be up in New York for a lacrosse game. I'm going to be out in California. So we travel all over, making this connection and doing these shows and promoting our veterans and our military.
That's awesome. So what made you come up with the all veterans group? Did you just wake up one day, I'm gonna do this? Or?
Well, it's, when I was getting ready to retire from the Golden Knights, that's where I retired from. I spent 11 years there, and I was a little bit older, but I still had agile enough to go out and do jumps. And I noticed a lot of guys would retire from the Army parachute team and just wouldn't jump anymore.
Right.
I guess for you, like an SF background, the guys are retiring, they don't do anything because they feel like they can't get that same satisfaction.
Exactly.
From an outside agency. So me and my best friend, who were on the Golden Knights together, we deployed to Afghanistan together. We was like, hey, why don't we come up with a parachute team? And we got all these guys with these great skill sets and they're not using them. Let's build a platform.
Nice.
So we started with we had 2 parachutes, and then leased a little building out at Rayford, which is XP now, a little Connex, small Connex, and we just started with this dream. And I retired a year before my buddy, and I started working on how to make this happen. Like, how do we build this parachute team and get that knowledge from people that we're safe and we know what we're doing? And it was a process of trying to do this. And Dave was still on the Army parachute team. We had built this platform. December 2013, Dave retired. Dave, like a lot of our soldiers, he was suffering from a lot, PTS and just a lot of stuff he was dealing with. In 2009, there was a metro crash in D.C. Mm-hmm. Dave's father was Major General Worley. His dad had just retired, and his dad and his dad's wife, his mom, were on their way to Walter Reed to talk to soldiers, and they were in that metro, on that metro when it crashed, and he lost both his parents. And he went up that day and to identify the bodies. And I remember stepping back here. We're at the Golden Knight headquarters, and we have a big screen television that's always on Fox News, and they were talking about this metro crash in D.C.
I saw it too.
And I was kind of listening to it, and Dave was my tandem coordinator. He gets a phone call, and he's just saying, yeah. And he looks at me and says, hey, man, my parents were on that train, but I didn't think anything about it. Like, oh, they're okay. Right. And I said, hey, Dave, is everything all right? And he said, no, I just lost both my parents. And he got that message on the phone. And when he came back from identifying the bodies, he just didn't come back whole. So, you take that, what he dealt with his parents, and then what he was already dealing with the military. Mm-hmm. And I knew he was dealing with a lot of stuff, but he was handling it. That's at least I thought he was, as a close friend.
And we all think that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We could do anything, we're untouchable, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Dave retired, and he took his trip with his family. He came back in like the end of December. And January, we started really working towards the all veteran group. We had leased a little office downtown Fayetteville. We're doing great things. And on the 29th of January, Dave didn't come into work. I'm calling. Another one of my buddies was calling, trying to find Dave, because Dave was selling him a house, and he was going to go through the paperwork, and he couldn't get in contact with Dave. And so I immediately left the office, got in my car, and went down he stayed off of Hay Street, with the new condos down there.
Mm-hmm. And I know exactly where you're talking about. And
I found Dave in his apartment. He had took his own life. And I was pissed off at him, because I felt like you could have came to me.
And you left me.
And you left me. And I remember that day of me having to call Dave's sister and tell her about it. You think about, she just lost her parents and her only brother. I never will forget that scream on the other end of that line coming from her, from Betsy. So it was a tough situation, but I knew that I had to continue to push this team forward, so I could help people like Dave that's suffering, and show people that we as veterans can still do positive things. And it put the wind in my sail, and I closed the hole in my heart, and I continue to push forward, and we've been going strong since that day, and we will continue to go strong as long as we can.
Well, I'll tell you what, brother, I want to say, hey, first off, to his family and to you also, sorry for the loss. And second, it's just like you just said, veterans, we deal with so much. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, I'm not downgrading civilians or anything, but our stress level as veterans is so high, especially since 2001, September 11, 2001, when all this got ramped up and we actually started war. This is the longest we've ever been at war in America's history. So many people are affected by it, both veterans, families, first responders, the whole 9 yards. And to hear that you're doing what you're doing for the All Veterans Group, I think that's just noble, man. I think it's phenomenal. I think what you're doing is you're giving back.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole thing behind this whole podcast, is to give back, because there's 22 veterans a day committing suicide, and to me, one is too many.
Absolutely.
22 is way too many a day, and at the end of the day, it's like you just said, you thought you knew everything you needed to know. Hey, this is my boy, I got him, he's good, he's taking care of it, but he's not, and as veterans, we do such a good job at hiding that too.
Absolutely.
We do a great job of it. So, at the end of the day, we just got to start, I know there's programs out there, we got to start, paying more attention to them. We got to start letting them know that, hey, you're not the only one, you're not the only one that's struggling.
Absolutely. And I think as a veteran, speaking to a veteran, there's those moments, and I have them, you have them, that you're sitting at home and there's nothing, there's no noise, and man, you're like, I got to get around I got to do something. Oh yeah. We understand one another. Yep. Just the other day at a jump, we're sitting around in the team room and just at the conference table, just 90% veterans and just sitting there talking and communicating. I think that's what we miss most.
It's the camaraderie.
And why can't we continue to push out to all veterans and figure out a way that, hey man, let's sit down, let's have a campfire and just tell stories.
Yep.
Because we need that. I need it. I'm sure you need it.
I need it. So. And I get it. And one thing I definitely want to tell you about is Brotherhood of Warriors. Brad Clayton does that. He was one of my guests on, and I love Brad to death. Brad always gets us together through golf. And all of us suck, but we're together. And it's our language. We're talking our language. And I tell people, me and you can have a whole conversation and people be looking at me like, what are they talking about?
Right.
Because as veterans, we speak a whole different language. We talk a different way. We walk a certain way. And like you just said, it's that camaraderie, that brotherhood of I trust you, you trust me. Even if it's a veteran you just met, it's just something that brings you together.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter where you're from. It's just something that brings you together. I serve, you serve. We speak a different language.
Absolutely.
And so at the end of the day, I think, what you're doing with the All Veterans Group, what I'm trying to do with the podcast here, and that's why I say you're the first veteran that I've had on my show. And I know I got a lot more that are coming on, but the biggest thing is getting our guys to talk about it.
Absolutely.
I got a buddy that's coming on the show, Chris. Can't wait to come on the show. Chris had an alcohol problem, had a drinking problem. I told him that. He knew that, but he just kind of blew it off because it's weird how I feel like some of our veterans have problems, but when we're around each other, we're normal because we got the same problem.
Exactly.
Which makes us normal. I tell people I sleep 3 to 5 hours a night, and people are like, there ain't enough sleep. I talk to my veteran brothers, they're like, I know you weren't asleep because you were texting me the group text. So your sleep habits are just like mine. So that's normal to us. But when you talk to a normal person that actually gets 8 to 10, 12 hours of sleep a night, they're like, no, there's something wrong with you. And we're like, how can they sleep that long? But in reality, maybe it's us, But it's just hard to tell guys,
Absolutely. And that's, like I said, just like, I wish I could get 8 hours of sleep.
Oh, same here. I wish I could. Yeah.
But it's so many, I've met so many amazing organizations that's doing so much, like Luis Control and the Dancing Angels. And I'm also help out with the U.S. Veterans Corps that does so much. They were instrumental in Maggie Dustin's house recently, which you knew her husband quite well. There's so many great organizations out there and so many companies that I've ran in that want to do and they care about what they're doing. They're not looking at the big pack on the back, but hey, if I can help out a veteran, whether that's, and I'm talking not just our military, but our firefighters, our police officers, our all first responders. We all need that help. And, everyone coming together like with your podcast here, hope people can understand and see that just helping out. If you do a little bit every day, if we all do a little bit, it's going to make such a big difference in someone's life.
Oh yeah. And that's what we're trying to do here, man. We're just trying to capture stories like capturing your story. Listen, that was a great walk, and you're continuing that walk to jump in, former presidents, and then being a country boy right here from Littleton, North Carolina, and not making it about race, but also being a black guy jumping into former president 3 times, and he's asking for you by name.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So for some young kid out there that's running around right now, anything is possible.
Absolutely.
You can do whatever you want to do. You put your mind to it. So at the end of the day, like Mike just said, if we just help a little bit, one person, just one person, if every person pays that forward, you think about how much better our world would be. We wouldn't be arguing over stupid stuff like a country song, for instance, that I tend to like. And I'm like, stuff like that, it wouldn't even be important to us anymore.
Right.
Be like, yeah, dude, I don't care nothing about that country song and how y'all trying to make it bad. I'm gonna go over and help this lady I just saw broke down. I'm gonna go help this guy build his shed he's been working on. You know, it's sad, but I talk to people that I go to buddies' house and be like, hey man, who's your neighbor? Oh man, I don't even talk to my neighbor. I'm like, I see the guy there working on something and he's right there next to you. Go help him.
Absolutely.
Why not help him? That's your neighbor. If something goes wrong, you hope that's gonna be the first person running your house if it's on fire, you know? So, you know, we just, as a country, we just gotta, I think we focus so much on, I hate to say it, social media, money, and, you know, materialistic things that we've forgotten that our country was built on blood, sweat, and tears.
Absolutely.
And helping our fellow man. That's how it was built. So how do we get that back into our country?
Yeah, and it's just, you know, nowadays we deal with so much negativity.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking earlier, like, you know, I try not to watch the news because it puts a bad taste in my mouth, and then just this whole negative spin.
Oh, yeah.
So you're right. If you can just get out and help your neighbor, you know, it's help out.
And it's easy.
It's easy.
It's so easy. It's not like
It doesn't cost you anything.
I just said it on my last podcast. I'm telling you now, bro. All veterans group, if you guys are doing a function, you need volunteer work. Like, hey John, I need you to go take ice and deliver drinks. I ain't got money to donate, but I got time.
I appreciate that.
I got time. And that's what I told my buddy Mike the other day, dude, when I come to your golf tournament, do I want to play? Yeah. But if you don't have a slot because you got other teams, by all means, put me to work. Hey, Johnny, drive this cart around and sell, you know. Well, don't let me sell then. I might keep the money. But, hey, Johnny, take this cart around and get people drinks, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's time. And I told Mike, I got the time. You let me know where to be. I got the time. I'll be there because what you're doing is positive.
Exactly.
Same with you, brother. What you're doing is positive. If you ever need volunteers, let me know. And that's what I do. I call my buddies out, too. Just like I had a little kid on here the other day, the one I was telling you about that was paralyzed.
Right.
He was born with spinal bifida. His brother started a podcast, 13 years old. I told all my friends, go subscribe to this young man's his page. And not only that, anybody out there, he wanted to do some catfish doodling. I said, anybody out there? So a couple of my buddies reached out to me. We're trying to set something up.
But
awesome. To me, that's helping out. But that's people going far and beyond. Because I tell people, for me, and I'll let you read the text I got from the young lady this morning saying, you're reaching people across the world. Keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it. To me, that is worth more payment than I'll ever get money-wise, ever.
Yeah, I go sometimes to the U.S. Veterans Corps. Every Friday, they feed the homeless. And, okay. I mean, they are taking, it's a lot of volunteers, and they take 3 to 4 trailers full of boxes of food. They take them around to different locations. And it's all this volunteer help. And when you get there and you see these volunteers coming together for something bigger than what they see in the mirror, is absolutely amazing. So just, you know, finding little stuff like that and going out and giving a hand is absolutely amazing.
Heck yeah, you got to let me in on that, brother. I'll be there.
Yes, indeed.
Heck yeah. Well, hey, so for all our listeners, man, I want to thank Mike. I know he's a busy man, but I want to turn it forward to Mike. You know, hey, Mike, if there's anything you want to say to the viewers or listeners, people that are out there, I know for you, being a Golden Knight, you know, coming in with a phenomenal military career, being successful, is there anything you would have changed about your career?
I wouldn't change one thing, Johnny. It's
awesome.
You know, every day in the military wasn't, you know, strawberries.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there were some tough times and some bruises here and there.
Oh, yeah.
But it's made me the man that I am. And I'm thankful for everything that I had dealt with in the military. Every leader that I have, I learned something from everyone. Right. Regardless if that person was bad or good, you can take a little bit from someone. And I wouldn't change anything that I've done in the military. And what I accomplished in the military, still paying it forward now. I'm still using those same skill sets and giving back. And every day I can wake up with a smile because I'm happy about what I'm doing.
Okay.
And it's such a passion. I met it every day. You know, I continue to grind. You never stop grinding.
That's a fact.
But yeah, I wouldn't change one thing about my past.
That's awesome.
Military.
And the only thing not the only thing. I'm gonna say a couple more things. One thing I will say, like when you just said your friend took his own life, it's sad how many people are committing suicide nowadays.
Absolutely. So
what I would ask for you, if you don't mind, and maybe you didn't see me, for somebody, friend, who might be thinking about doing that? First off, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody.
Right.
And second off, what would you give anybody advice as far as like signs or symptoms maybe that?
I think that when you see a person that you know that's drinking a little bit heavily, that's closing themselves off a little more, not communicating to you, that's a big sign that you have to reach out.
Right.
And we all, as veterans, we have a black book full of friends or guys we serve with, and we forget that we just picked up a phone and call and say, hey man, how you doing?
Yep.
You know, that means a lot. And I had always thought maybe in the last year when Dave was around that there was a possibility. And I even sat down and talked to him. I was like, man, are you okay?
You good? Oh yeah.
But I'm good, man. I'm never going to do anything to myself. And I took that, was like, okay, he's good.
Yep.
But he wasn't. And you know, you question yourself, is there anything else I could have done?
No. Oh yeah.
But we can't change the path, the way things go. But I can continue to cut a clear path so guys we can reduce that 22 a day to hopefully it's none a day. Because it's we care. That's what it's all about.
So having said that, everybody, hey, we're gonna wrap up this episode, but I want to say to all our veterans, first responders, law enforcement, teachers, I say it all the time. One, y'all don't get paid enough, and two, I want to say, hey, if it comes to the point where you feel like you got to take your own life, reach out to somebody.
Absolutely. If
you hear this podcast, I'm telling you right now, my phone number is 919-353-9310. Call me, text me, get in touch with me. I'll talk to you. I'll come pick you up. I'm broke. I can't give you no money, but I'll feed you. I shoot about 20 deer a year. I'll definitely feed you. But at the end of the day, let's start reaching out. You know what I mean? And if you're a family member, and if it's a soldier out there or a first responder or anybody, just a civilian, that you feel like they're getting to that point where, like Mike just said, you know, they're being distant. They're starting to drink a little more. They're doing things that, you know, aren't normal. Reach out to somebody. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? Or talk to somebody that's been through it, and they can say, hey, look, this is a sign. And let's start getting into people's lives, because, you know, death's going to come for us all. There's no reason to rush it, and there's no reason to take your own life, because you got to think about how many people you're leaving behind that actually care about you. Like Mike just said, we care about you. We love you. And that's all I got. If you guys need anything, you know how to get in touch with me. Thanks again for, you know, being a part of the JMFG podcast. It's not my podcast. This is our podcast. We're helping through sharing. And that's all I got. Depressively Bear.
Thank you.
That was awesome, brother. I appreciate that, man. God, that was good, man.